Rain had begun to mist over downtown Seattle, turning the sidewalks glossy with blurry and neon reflections from cafes and late-night diners. Cars hissed by, their headlights slicing through the damp air. Among the moving silhouettes, a tiny figure stumbled out from behind an overflowing dumpster. Barefoot, dressed in a torn, oversized jacket, a homeless little girl pushed through the cold and ran toward the street. Her breaths came in sharp, frightened gasps. She had been watching the road for several minutes, waiting, hoping, to catch the attention of the only people who looked strong enough to listen. When the rumbling of engines finally filled the block, her heart leapt. A group of bikers, about 12 in number, approached in a neat formation, their headlights cutting through the fog, their jackets marked with the emblem of a charity ride traveling across the West Coast. Gathering every ounce of courage, she sprinted into the street. "Stop the bikes, it's an ambush!" she screamed, her voice cracking with terror. The bikers reacted instantly. Mason, the leader, hit his brakes hard, and the others followed, tires screeching as they skidded to a halt. Horns blared from the cars behind them, but the bikers ignored everything except the trembling child in their path. The girl crouched, shielding her face, expecting to be yelled at, or worse, ignored. But instead, silence settled over the group as engines began switching off one by one. Mason swung off his bike. Tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a rain-darkened leather jacket, he looked intimidating at first glance. But his eyes softened when he saw how the girl shook with fear. "Hey," he said gently, kneeling so they were eye level. "You okay? What ambush? Who's after us?" The girl pointed toward the skeleton of an old parking garage at the corner of Pine Street. Its broken windows stared blankly at the road, and vines crept along its concrete walls. The structure had been abandoned for years, known locally as a hangout for troublemakers. "Men, in there," she whispered. "They're waiting for you." The bikers exchanged confused, concerned looks. None of them had enemies in Seattle. They were simply passing through on their charity route to deliver winter supplies to shelters. Thunder rumbled above them, rolling low and heavy, blending with the tension tightening the air. A cold breeze swept through, carrying the smell of wet concrete and distant smoke. Mason studied the girl's face. Dirty, thin, and far too young to be fending for herself. She wasn't lying. Her fear was real, raw, almost painful to witness. "Why would someone ambush us?" a biker named Elena murmured, scanning the shadows of the garage. Before Mason could answer, the girl spoke again, her voice barely audible. "They watch the roads at night. They wait for people with things they can steal, especially bikes." She swallowed hard. "I saw them. I heard them. You have to believe me." Mason placed a firm but reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We believe you," he said. But deep down, he sensed there was more to her warning, something she hadn't said yet. Something even more dangerous hiding behind her desperate cry for help. Mason's grip on the girl's shoulder tightened just slightly, enough to reassure her, not enough to frighten her. Behind him, the bikers instinctively formed a protective semicircle, engines off, breaths shallow. Even the noisy Seattle streets seemed to quiet, waiting for what would happen next. "Everyone stay sharp," Mason ordered quietly, his voice steady but tense. Elena and two others moved closer to the sidewalk, scanning rooftops and shadowed alleys. The younger bikers took defensive stances beside their motorcycles, ready to intervene if anything burst from the darkness. The girl clung to Mason's jacket sleeve as though he was the first safe thing she had touched in months. Then, clang, a metallic echo bounced through the air from inside the parking garage. It wasn't loud, but in the silence, it struck like a warning bell. Every biker stiffened and turned toward the sound. Mason exchanged a look with Elena. "That wasn't nothing." Before he could move, the girl whispered, "They changed hiding places. They move around inside. They're watching from higher floors." "How do you know all this?" Elena asked gently. The girl hesitated, eyes drifting toward the dark structure. "Because I used to stay in there, before they came." Mason felt the weight of her words. If she had lived inside that garage, she'd know every corner, every noise, every danger. And if she'd left, then things inside must have gotten bad, too bad for even a homeless child to survive. Shadows shifted in the broken windows overhead. Silhouettes appeared, several figures lurking on the second floor. Their outlines were jagged, holding long shapes that glinted faintly under the streetlights. Pipes, metal rods, makeshift weapons. Elena inhaled sharply. She wasn't kidding. But something wasn't right. The men didn't shout or rush down. They simply watched, like predators sizing up prey. Why target us? Mason murmured under his breath. We're not carrying money, just gear and supplies. The girl tugged on his sleeve again. They don't care. They take everything they can. Food, bags, even blankets. And bikes. They can sell parts. They follow travelers who come through at night. Her voice wavered. That's how they found me too. A chill crept down Mason's spine. This wasn't just a random group of thugs. This was organized scavenging. Desperate men preying on the vulnerable. We're not letting them take anything, one biker muttered, knuckles tightening around his helmet. But Mason raised a hand to halt him. No one moves yet. The girl's breathing quickened. There was something else she wasn't saying. Mason could feel it. He leaned closer. What aren't you telling us? Her eyes glistened with fear. They're not just after bikes tonight. Lightning flashed, illuminating her face, and the dread carved into it. They've been talking about taking someone, she whispered. A person is worth more than a bike. They were waiting for someone to grab. And when they saw you coming, she trembled violently. They said you were perfect. The bikers froze. Suddenly, this wasn't about theft anymore. It was about survival.